I moved into the suburb for the cheap rent. Nothing special about it, just rows of similar houses, quiet neighbors, a few scattered trees lining the roads. Clean enough, close enough to the city, far enough to be affordable. It was the kind of place people forget once they leave. I didn't mind. I wasn't looking for anything exciting. Just a place to sleep between long shifts downtown. My work often kept me late. Midnight drives became routine. Empty streets, silent homes, faint city glow behind me. But there was one thing I couldn't explain. Sometimes, when I turned the final corner toward my street, just under the giant oak tree at the edge of the block, I'd pass a little street hawker stand. A lone figure tending a glowing grill, smoke curling up into the branches. And the smell. God, the smell. Sweet, savory, smoky. It clung to my car windows long after I passed it. It made my stomach growl, even if I'd just eaten. I never really thought much about it at first. Street food was nothing new, especially back in the city, where carts lined the streets like ants, selling everything from cheap grilled meat to variety of toasts and sandwiches. Cheap, fast, good enough to keep you going through a double shift. So, when I started seeing the stand, I assumed it was just that. Another food cart run by someone chasing a bit of side cash. Maybe they got clever and scoped out a quiet spot near the suburb, right under that big tree that split the road into like a crooked spine. It was always around midnight when I saw it. Never earlier, never later. Sometimes the stand was there. Sometimes it wasn't, but when it was, I'd spot it just as I turned off the highway ramp and onto the narrow road that snaked into the neighborhood. There, beneath the gnarled branches of the tree, stood a small stand, no signs, no logos, just smoke rising in slow spirals from a sizzling grill. Behind it, a fair-skinned woman. She wore a long black skirt that brushed the ground and a white blouse that glowed faintly under the warm light of an oil lamp hanging from the cart's frame. Her dark hair was braided neatly down her back, not a strand out of place. She didn't wave, didn't shout like the vendors in the city. She didn't even look up. She just stood there, quiet and calm, flipping meat over glowing coals with the kind of patience that felt out of place in this modern world. Everything about her was precise, controlled, almost ritualistic. Sometimes I slowed the car, just enough to catch the smell, rich, smoky, sweet and savory. The kind of scent that makes your stomach twist and growl before your brain even registers why. It lingered inside my car long after I passed her, like it didn't want to leave. The more I saw her, the more I started to wonder. Who was she feeding out here in the dark? Why did no one else seem to notice? And most of all, why did the food smell so good? One night, after an especially brutal overtime shift, the kind that drains you hollow, I couldn't help myself. My stomach was aching, my limbs heavy. The fluorescent-lit vending machines back at the office had stopped working, and I hadn't eaten since morning. The road into the suburb was dark and still. The houses farther in were mostly asleep, only a few porch lights flickered dimly in the distance. But as I neared the old tree, I saw it again. The cart, the woman, and the smoke curling toward the branches like fingers. I slowed. Slower. Slower still. Then, against every better judgment I had, I pulled over, right under the tree's sprawling shadow, where the streetlights always seemed dimmer than they should be. The moment I opened the car door, I was hit by the scent, thick, meaty, sweet, not cloying, not rotting, just strong enough to make my head spin. It reminded me of grilled Wagyu steak I had during the New Year party months ago, but with a deeper, unfamiliar edge. The cart didn't have a name, no menu. Just various of meat skewers laid out in meticulous rows, glistening with juices that hissed and dripped onto the glowing coals. And there she was, the woman, standing perfectly still, her braid resting neatly between her shoulder blades, her white blouse crisp, untouched by the smoke that blurred around her like mist. She asked if I was hungry, without looking up, short but polite enough. Her voice was soft, too smooth compared to any woman I ever met, as if spoken in a library, with grumpy librarian watching over me. I just nodded, didn't bother reply. Didn't have to anyway. She nodded back and turned to take a few skewers, the meat crackling as it caught a fresh burst of flame. She said gently, asking me to take which I would pick. There was something odd in her tone, polite, measured, like someone anticipated me all this time. someone who wasn't used to speaking unless spoken to first. I pointed to four skewers, the ones that looked the most appetizing. She gave a small, formal smile. No words, just motion. She swiftly handled the grill and then neatly put the food in a box and handed it to me. Her hands, they were cool, not cold. Just too cool for someone standing over burning coals. And her skin, pale and smooth, had no trace of soot or oil. No glove, no apron, just those fair spotless fingers. She reminded me to bring the change with soothing, almost melodic voice. I took the cash without looking. I don't even remember what I paid. I just remember the smell of the meat, smoky, slightly sweet. Charred at the edges, it filled the car even before I started driving. I didn't wait until I got home. I ate it right there, parked under the tree. The flavor was unreal, savory and tender, with a texture that almost melted on the tongue. Seasoned in a way I couldn't place, like herbs I didn't recognize, or spices that didn't grow in this country. I went home in silence. The street behind me swallowed the cart in shadow. That night, I ate the last bite like I hadn't eaten in years. Then I went to bed, full, heavy, and dreamed of fire. Of bones cracking, of something cooking in the distance, and laughter, faint and muffled, drifting through smoke. It became a habit. I didn't mean for it to. But after a while, it was automatic. If the stand was there, I stopped. No matter how late it was, no matter how tired I felt, I'd find myself slowing near the giant oak tree, eyes scanning for that warm orange glow, nose already catching wisps of smoke that made my mouth water. She was always the same, never too cheerful. Never pushy, just gentle. She greeted me with a nod or a quiet evening. Sometimes her blouse changed, or her braid was looser. But the cart, the coals, the smell, always the same, always clean. Each night she had something new on the grill. Thicker cuts, smaller ones, some with bones, some wrapped in leaves I'd never seen before. I never asked where it came from, never saw her bring ingredients. Never saw her clean or pack up, she was just there. One evening, curious more than cautious, I asked, "What kind of meat is this?" She looked up from the coals, her dark eyes reflecting the flame. And she smiled, just enough to show the edge of her teeth. She said that she prepared everything on what my hunger asked for. There was something about how she said it, soft, measured, like a lullaby you weren't supposed to understand. I didn't press, didn't joke, because, truthfully, it didn't matter. The meat was good, better than good. It had something deeper than taste, like it was made for me. Soon, I stopped eating dinner. I'd come home, wait till late, and hope she was there. Some nights I even drove around the block twice, just to check. I told myself it was harmless, just a craving. Something small to make my routine feel special. One evening, on my day off, I ran into my neighbor, Roni, while bringing the trash out. We'd become friendly over the last month, bonded over parking space complaints and shared hatred for leaf blowers. We chatted, just small talk. And somewhere between casual jokes and late-night grumbling, I mentioned her. "You ever tried that night hawker by the tree?" I asked. "She's amazing, always out late. Kinda quiet, but the food's next level." Roni stopped mid-step, his eyes locked onto mine. He was confused by what hawker I was talking about. I blinked for a moment, in disbelief that he missed such wonderful meals nearby. I explained the hawkers by the big oak tree. Usually past 11. Sells grilled meat skewers and stuff. His expression shifted, from confused to concerned. He looked like he was trying to decide whether or not I was screwing with him. "There's never been a hawker there," he said slowly. "There is no one ever set up hawker stands since he moved to this here. And that was years ago." I asked why, but he didn't answer right away. Looked down, scratched his neck. He suggested I should drop it and avoid the hawker from now on. He also added that better to ask the old folks if I wasn't convinced. He didn't want to explain, didn't need to. My stomach turned. All the meals I'd devoured came rushing back like swallowed stones. I barely muttered a goodbye before heading inside. I went straight to the glove box. That's where I'd been tossing the change she gave me each night, the cash that brought strange sensation whenever it was in my palm. They never looked quite right, too smooth, too slick. Some were soft, like damp cloth, as I emptied the compartment onto my kitchen counter, and just stared. Nothing but leaves, dozens of them. Some dried and brittle, cracking to powder when I touched them. Some soft and damp, as it was freshly plucked. A few were wrapped tightly around small bone fragments. Too small for anything farmed, too smooth for animal. I stood there for a long time, hands shaking, staring at the pile that I'd unknowingly collected night after night. And in that stillness, I realized something else. I'd never seen anyone else there. No other customers, no passing cars slowing down, no dogs barking from nearby homes. Just me, her, and the sound of the coals whispering. That night, I didn't sleep, because something told me I might not wake up the same. I stopped stopping, tried going home earlier. Sometimes stayed in the city and slept in my car just to avoid driving through the neighborhood at the wrong time. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. The scent lingered long after the memory, but it had changed. No longer rich and savory, it was sharper now, bitter, blackened, like charred skin and burned fat. It clung to my clothes, my sheets, my throat. No amount of showers or incense could scrub it out. I tried to avoid the tree. Started changing my schedule, leaving work earlier, pushing through deadlines, skipping breaks, anything to make sure I drove past before nightfall. Other times, I'd stall. Wait until after 2 a.m. when even the streets slept. For a while, it worked. The bend was empty, no soft glow, no scent, no woman. I started to believe I'd imagined it, that my hunger had conjured her, that maybe the stress had finally cracked me open wide enough for old things to crawl through. But then came that one night. A late meeting, traffic that didn't move. The kind that feels like the whole world has stopped breathing. By the time I cleared the last intersection, it was well past midnight. The road ahead was silent, still. I turned the familiar bend, hands white-knuckling the wheel. And there she was, exactly where I first found her. Beneath the oak tree, coals crackling like whispers. Smoke curling into shapes I didn't want to recognize. She was turned at me this time. Tried to looking at me straight to the face, waiting, same white blouse, same black skirt, same smile that didn't reach her eyes. As I slowed, not by choice, but by instinct, she lifted her hand, palm open, a gesture both welcoming and final. Even if I was far from the tree, I could hear the woman voice asking for some grilled meat. I didn't answer, didn't nod, didn't stop. I pressed my foot to the gas and drove. Didn't care if I ran red lights. Didn't care that my hands were shaking. I didn't look in the mirror, didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I was parked in my driveway, engine off, heart stuttering like a dying clock. The street was quiet, no smoke, no scent, no glow. I sat in the car for a long time, trying to tell myself it was over. But then I smelled it, stronger than ever, rising up from the back seat, thick and hot. A blend of pepper and blood, metal and molasses. Slowly, with dread so sharp it made my skin itch, I turned my head. There, resting on the seat behind me, was a single skewer. In an open paper box, still glistening, still smoking. And in the silence of that moment, as my pulse thundered and my throat tightened, I swear I heard her voice again to remind me to not forget about the change. I haven't seen her since. I take a different road now, longer, bumpier, but safer. I burn everything I got from the hawker. I got nightmare a few days since. And when I wake, there's ash on my floor, grease on my fingers. Some signs to prove me that I ate at that hawker. I was scared. I asked around. About the hawker stand, about the woman. No one wants to talk about it. Some say she was a vengeful ghost. Some say she was cursed, feeding on grief. Some just say don't stop, don't get closer. Don't ever buy food even the smell is good. As for me, I've learned to keep driving, to keep my windows shut tight, to ignore the smells that tug at the edges of hunger. Because who'll meet the midnight hawker next, no one can say. But if you're ever on that road past midnight, and the wind carries the scent of grilled meat, and you see a soft light under a giant tree, keep driving, or you might end up with more than just a meal.